Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, right. Good.
Perfect. I've got you too. Hello, Piers. How the devil are you?
I'm well. And you?
I'm very well. I'm really looking forward to listening.
Yeah.
And if I suddenly lose connection, it's for one of two reasons. Firstly, I've got an absolutely atrocious broadband width here. And also we're having a roof put on. So if it gets very noisy, I may just switch off.
It's life, right? I mean, can't
It
avoid
is
it.
life.
Yeah.
It is indeed. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Colorado.
Do you know Tagir?
I did, yeah. Yeah.
Is he dead? When you say did, did.
I shouldn't say did. I have met and worked with, but it's been many, many years. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, he is my absolutely. I love Tagir to bits. He used to stay with me. He was our usher for many, many years. So I was I joined the Emin in maybe 70. I'm going to say 76 or 77. So it was a long time ago. Yeah. Maybe even 74. And we had Tagir as our usher for the vast majority of that time. And I was fortunate enough to have him staying with me. So he'd come up to Lincoln and he stayed in our house. Right. So I've spent many, many evenings with him.
Very good.
Hello.
Hello. Who just joined?
Hi.
There we are. There you are. I'm just letting people in, so forgive the close-up, first of all. Good to see you both.
We've seen you. You're not that bad.
Not that bad?
No.
Hello, Alyssa.
Hello. All right, there we are. Okay. Just letting people in at the moment, so it's going to take a minute.
I had time to run for donuts.
You did.
For the Zoom meeting.
Hello, Orman.
Hello, Orman.
Audio.
Ah, there he is. Hey, I have a question.
There he is. I've always been here.
I have a question. It's more of a technical one. When someone is wanting to come into the meeting, do you guys see that as well, or is it just on my side that I see? I get a little. You see it?
No, just you.
No. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna have to keep. It's a little tiny pop-up that comes about this big, and I don't always see it. So right. I think we're waiting on just a couple more people. Are you both well? Randy and Susan.
Yes. Yeah, we're doing just fine.
I like the backdrop there, the picture.
Oh, yes.
Well, this is my classroom. I've been teaching online for the last year. So
this is mine.
That's nice.
Works.
Rich.
We got
Mike is I think he's decided to invite Tim.
Okay, great.
Okay.
We're just letting people in right now. This is more.
Whatever. Yeah. Well, speak of the devil from Hull. My God.
Volume and everything okay? You all can hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Technology is amazing, isn't it? I've got this robotic camera that follows me around, and I can do certain hand gestures. I think it's following me around. Yeah, I can do certain hand gestures to make it zoom in and zoom out.
Huh? Yeah.
I'm sending you one.
Yeah.
I'm sending you one. I got one on order for you.
What, a hand gesture?
No, a hand gesture. Yes, I bought you a hand gesture. You wouldn't believe how expensive it is. No, one of those robotic cameras. Useful. Who do we need? Okay, view the waiting room. Yeah,
you know what, Pierce?
Yeah.
I think I'm finally prepared to admit you are better looking than me.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Definitely.
No, I don't think so.
We don't think so.
I don't think he's got much brains, but he's definitely better looking. Yeah, definitely. That's for sure. Oh, here he is.
Hey. Hi, Trifena. Would you mind switching on your camera for us, unless you're not able to? There you are. Hello. Ah, good. Got some.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Definitely.
Oh, you've got
Absolutely.
cute little.
So I'm just letting people in at the moment. It's going to take a bit, and then we'll get going.
How old are your little babies? How old?
3 and 1.5.
Oh my.
No, yeah.
Yes.
We just had another grandson born 2 weeks ago, and we were just spending time with him yesterday.
Oh,
That's
congratulations.
nice.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
wonderful.
2 weeks ago, you said?
Yeah, Easter. He was born
Wow.
on Easter.
Well,
Oh, how sweet.
Yes. He is a sweet little guy.
I think next year my birthday falls on Easter. I think it does that, what, every 7 years, right? Like
Yeah,
the day advances or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. How are we on time? Huh. I have no time.
I mean, you don't need
Okay.
anybody. You don't need anybody else here except us, Pierce. You
I
know,
agree.
go, bash in, mate. Go on, what are you
So-
laughing at? Yeah. Some of us
Right.
have know each other, so yeah. Right, yeah.
So I want to start by saying something, because largely this is the first time this entire group has met together, and it's a bit impromptu, and we don't all know each other, at least not in the same context as has been before. It really, I don't know you, and I don't know who you are, and you don't know who I am. But that's not really what's important. What's important is we do know the what of you, and you'll get to know the what of us. Now, what do I mean by that? Someone answer me. What is this? Can you see it? What is this?
An eraser.
Right. It's an eraser. What about this?
Oh, your cell phone.
Your
A cell phone. Yeah. And I could go on and on. I could point to plants, I could point to chalkboards, I could point to everything else, but it's very strange in our culture, because if I say, what are you? Most of the time people draw a blank, don't they? Most of the time it's and they start going after things like, well, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a this, I'm a that, right? I'm an engineer. All these sorts of things, because that's what's easy. And there is this esoteric aspect to the question of what are we on the inside, and we might get to that today. I'm not really sure. I'm just kind of putting feelers out there for where we go with this. But the truth is that you really are what you do, and you are what you're able to do, aren't you? If you ask someone what they are, and they respond with, I am a, doctor, whatever the case might be. In actuality, that might actually be the case, because that is what they do, right? The eraser is a great example, isn't it? What does it do? What is it? It's an eraser. What does it do? It erases, right? That is the simple truth of it. But here's the difference, because an eraser will never be anything other than what it is. It'll always just be an eraser. Now, as a human being, I can come along and I can do something else with it. I could get 2 more of them, and turn it into a juggling prop. I can do anything I want to with it, right? But that's not the eraser doing it. That's me doing it. And that's one of the big differences, is because we as humans have this option to be able to adopt what it is that we do. We can opt into what it is, or not what it is we do. We can opt into what we are. Make sense?
Yeah.
We have choice, which is just about all we do have in the whole universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but what is choice? Where does that come from?
Well, what we choose is a different question to we have choice. And so you've got a double aspected thing going on, where you can say, well, all we have is choice. we choose whatever comes along. And so choice is selection. So we select our life, we select our future. You know, we make choices.
Yeah, but do you know most people don't realize that? Most people go through life where the choices are actually made for them, right? The whatever environment they grow up in, this type of stuff. And, you know, in that respect, it is very much like an eraser, isn't it? Because the eraser didn't choose, it was just in a culture of
rubbers.
Huh?
A culture
What?
of rubbers.
Yeah.
In the UK, we call them a rubber.
Oh, okay, right.
Water
So it's
boots.
a culture of rubbers, but that particular eraser has constituent parts. So within the eraser, you've got the wood, you've got the plastic, so you get structure and function. So the eraser has a function. What we need to understand is the structure. And if you understand the structure, you can lay a function upon it. But without an understanding of structure, then what is the point of it? I mean, our structures are human.
So there's two others. There's structure and there's two other aspects though.
Yeah.
Right. You can't have let's see if it'll follow me here. Can't have a one-legged triangle. Right? Everything has to appear in this kind of threefold aspect.
Yeah.
So you've got structure here. What sits here and here?
Well, I can't actually see it.
Oh,
sorry.
Let's see if it'll do this.
I'm very old and my eyes don't work. Okay, so we've got a triangle there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The structure is a triangle. What is the function
is one leg
of the triangle?
Of it. Structure is just one leg of it. No, you think it's the whole thing?
The whole thing is the structure. Okay, space and time. Space and time. Yeah.
Who said that?
Randy.
Who said space and time?
Okay.
Who said space and time?
KK.
Ah, right. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I rest that. You're right. There is space and time before structure.
Yeah,
Well,
that's true. Very true.
Kenna, yes?
Actually, I said place and time, but space will do.
Okay.
Place.
I see. I see.
How does form play into this? Maybe it's not space.
It's jumping.
Form is maybe needed to make structure. I'm not sure.
Let's work it out. So we have space. But what is space? Space actually, I mean, really, space isn't anything, does it? Is it? It's the whole in between.
It's everything.
Well, it is, but
Right.
see, like I'm standing in a room, right? And it has 4 walls. Presumably, it has more, but it has 4 walls. But that's not what's useful about it. What's useful about it is this area in between, right? And we call this space, but it's not. It's form. It's more of the form in which something can happen. If it was just solid, you know, square cubes, basically in here, nothing could happen in it.
So you're saying container.
Yeah, so I'm saying that the form of something comes even before the space. The space is almost right, the result of some sort of form. Now, time. What is time really? Randy, I want to call on you for this one.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Randy. Time.
What is time?
Yeah.
Well, first off, that is a question that they have never actually figured out because.
Well, maybe we can accomplish something today then.
It's elusive. Passage of singular moments, you know, they've got time down to the how long it takes the speed of light, a photon, to go across the hydrogen atom. And so they've actually got a
I called the Planck length.
no, this is a newer one. They're still trying to figure out if, you know, time is a quanta, in other words, like matter, or if time is infinite.
Right. Now, let me pause there, because you said something interesting from the standpoint of even the scientific definition of time is it's such a circular definition, isn't it? The amount of time is measured as the amount of time it takes to blah, 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 right? But it's two things coming together, isn't it? Right? You have to have a photon crossing a hydrogen atom, or you have to have, you know, one Planck length moving another Planck length over to the right or left or forward or backwards or whatever. But it's not fundamental. It's really not fundamental, is it? Right? It already implies that other things exist.
Yes.
You're saying
Yes.
then time needs to be occupied.
Yes.
Time without occupation isn't anything at all, is it?
No, it's not.
So for us, for the human, for the planetary life, we're a small moment of a greater time, aren't we? We're just a little bit of something bigger than itself.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You know?
Time doesn't exist without space.
Time is corrosive.
Oh,
Isn't it? Just, the point I was making was very simple, you know, because you said about form, you have to be occupied. Form has to be occupied. So if you have, for example, an atmosphere, or you've got a persona or a presence or something of that sort, it will be according to the form of its source. So you have a personal atmosphere.
Yeah.
You carry that with you all your life. And sometimes when you're with close family and things like that, that's what surrounds you. But when you're out in the big world, there's a different kind of atmosphere that you enter into that isn't yours, but you still go into it. And out of that, you add that to yours, which gives you a different kind of form. So someone can come and say, oh, you've been out, haven't you? You say, how do you know that? Well, this doesn't look and sense and feel like you, because you've added something to your atmosphere. So the form is different. But I think I've always considered that form is always the herald to shape, because everything has to have a shape. If you don't have a shape, you can't be here. You have to have a physical body.
Right.
So what the shape can determine the form that's within it. I think it's the other way around. I think that form determines shape. So we're pentagrammic, but a horse isn't. I mean, it's got the same form, but its actual shape, it's got 4 legs, you know, we don't have 4 legs. So a horse, in an esoteric divide of things, would be a planetary life form. But humans aren't planetary, because their life form is beyond the planetary 4. That's what you need to be planetary 4. We're 5.
Yeah. And so with the planet, we create an enneagram.
Well, yeah, that's a working structure. What you were talking about.
Exactly.
You've got to have a structure. It's true. You know, I mean, like, what is creation? Creation in the first place is a structure. Life sits upon the structure or works within it. You can't have life without structure, and you can't have structure without form. And form comes from something, for example, more ethereal than a physical nature of life. So we have a good example of that is spirituality. Spirituality doesn't have shape or form. It takes on what it finds itself power in more than anything else. But the thing
Repeat that
about
last
spirit,
word.
powering, Powering.
Yeah, powering. Yeah.
I've got my national health teeth in today, Pierce, and so if it doesn't come out right, I can't help it, mate. I've got a false eye in, really, but you can't see it. It's like that. So what I'm saying is that it gets a bit complex, doesn't it? So I think someone else said it earlier on. The simple thing is, if you've got a structure,
Yeah.
you have the possibility of a process.
Yeah.
If you have a process, it means something from A can become B. So you can go from coarse to fine, or you can go from fine to coarse. That it can include everything: electrical, magnetic, physical.
Yeah.
I mean, look what we eat. I know we don't eat concrete, but you would do if you was hungry enough. But we process it, and then we take from it what we require. So we change its form and add it to ourselves.
Yeah.
But you structure to put that upon. So mentally, what one could say is, what is the form of your mind? Because you'd need to know that if you wanted to see the shape of someone's mind, because it isn't necessarily such a physical process that you've got a spare box on the back of your head, which you call that's where your mind is. You know what I mean? So we have, because we are more than planetary, higher options about things, and people don't really understand this, and that's why they go wrong a lot of the time, especially with their esoteric work. Everybody has an esoteric nature and an occult one, you understand, and they have a spiritual one, but it may be that they don't ever in their life encounter anything that fills in that room you were talking about, Pierce. Mm-hmm. So if that room at this moment was filled with, say, eminence, the nature of our conversation would be totally different. If it was filled with persona, it would be a conversation about something else to do with us, and so on. But if it's just an atmosphere, then you get to learn these things. Once you learn these things, then you're able in your own life to determine them in the incidents of your event of life. So you go into someone's house, it's not yours, it's theirs. But in your place, it's yours. Do you understand? And so when you deal in the higher forms of esoteric work, you will deal with entities that really, they don't exist in physical bodies. I
get that. That's understandable.
When you see dead people, right? Oh, you call them dead people. It's not. It's the difference between you and a ghost. You know what it is? They don't have a body. I mean, it's as simple as that. So when you die, it's like a car, when the car's at it, it conks out down the road. You think, oh, damn it, I've had enough of this. So you flog it to the old scrapyard, but it doesn't mean to say the passengers go with it, does it? Unless, of course, the passenger is the car itself. Mm-hmm. So in such a way, it opens up for the human event, at least, or human beings, the prospect of reincarnation, greater life, higher life, and all of those aspects that our cultural life doesn't necessarily provide us with. Or, handing it back to Pierce, give us the opportunity to engage in. Do you know what I mean? Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think that is fair. And I I'm totally with the idea that we have structure, function, one goes with the other, and we have a life we need to move forward with and transform within that. Because when you go into another atmosphere and your atmosphere comes up against that, then there must be a process of transformation. Otherwise, it's almost been a valueless, provided the levels are right, it's a valueless exchange.
Yeah, it's a valid idea. It's a valid point too. But the thing is, it's more than just transformation, isn't there? Because you've got transient, transcendental. That's another form of it, higher forms. So, transient is an astral condition of life, and transcendental is an ethereal one. But you have other domains besides those. You have the animated domain. You've got other kinds of domains, but our life doesn't allow that, because we spend all of our time, fixed, don't you agree, Piers, with the fact that we are fixed in what we are preoccupied with. And it isn't really our life, is it? You know. And
No.
just tell me to shut up. You know, go on. It's an easy day for him. Look. But it makes sense to me, because if one's going to go on a journey or do a work of any of that kind of nature, you've got to come to terms with the basics of it. I mean, imagine walking into a kung fu school and taking on the master, and you haven't even beaten up a fly in your life, never mind about anything else. You know, you look good before the event, and then you won't exist afterwards. You know, it's like that, isn't it? See? And it's the same way with learning. You need new knowledge, because we've got such a lot of crap, to be honest with you. This new knowledge in itself is what it could be regenerative. In other words, bringing back into play in ourselves all sorts of process that we in our lives haven't used, but we are naturally endowed with. And they tend to call that being esoteric, because it's out of sight for everybody else. Once you know it, there's no more esoteric. In fact, what you do is you've got a whole series of values of life that you now adhere to that actually give you a greater perception or development of life than what your ordinary culture of self would possibly come to. You know, I mean, I've been to India, I've done the trip, I've done it here, I've been around the world twice, I've done the whole lot, I've done everything. And I went to India inspired, as an example, you know, and I came back on a jumbo jet full of 500 people who weren't, because they didn't find what they were looking for. Yet I found more in my own back garden. I mean, it's kind of like that, isn't it? You know, yeah. Mysticism, you might say, well, Piers. What happens when a mystic, is a mystic?
No.
Because to a mystic, there isn't anything mystical, is there, about
it?
You know what I mean?
No.
All different
He or
levels.
she just is.
Well, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And this goes back to you are what you do. You are what you can do. Right.
But
Not
then
the
the question is, what can we do?
Yes.
And that's where you need structure and function. So what can we do? You know, we know that, I mean, it's like, I used to be a massage therapist, and I reached a stage with my brain after I'd loaded myself with anatomy and physiology, and I knew what was what and where it was and how it worked. Then I was able to put my hands on people and actually know them in a different way. And so when you talk about what we can do, because we are beyond planetary, but we do have a planetary aspect that gives us life, that as it's hand down our throat, that wiggles our tonsils and says, here, have some air, you can breathe. You know, because we know that happens, because here we are doing it. But there's a part of us that can engage in a very different way. And when you put your hands on people and you understand what you're touching, you understand the structure, because you've been told about it, you understand the function because you can see people walking, but there's a bit extra, and that's almost where the spirit comes in, and you put your hands on and suddenly you know what's going on within that structure, and you can help movement, transience, movement, transformation, whatever trans you want to pop on it, really.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you actually reminded me of something, and I'm not going to get it exactly right because it was many, many years ago that I encountered this kind of bit of knowledge, but during the time of some sort of plague that swept through the planet, right? Everyone's just getting sick. And this was before anyone knew what microorganisms were. They just thought it was, you know, like, they didn't know how it was transferred, right? From one person to another. People are just dropping dead all over the place. Then some clever scientist was able to discover this little microbe, this little bug that's making people sick. And they published it in the actual image of it itself. They published it in a fairly widely distributed newspaper sort of thing. And all of a sudden, within days of that, the rate of infection dropped steadily. And what this points to is that not only the form, the structure, and the process are required, but it has to become a part of us, because if we don't understand what it is that we're dealing with and what it is that we're working with, if we can't internalize it, we can't engage with it, and that's why it's almost like you have to take for granted. Orman's thrown out, many different terms, which I, oddly enough, we didn't meet about any of this, but I found it would come up, or thought it would come up, so I put some stuff on the board about it. But he's talking about the ethereal, the animated, the spiritual, the astral, all these types of things. And for most people, I need to fix this rug, excuse me. For most people, it's just words. They don't have any kind of experience with this.
Yeah.
And so I think the real question is not, it's almost too soon to talk about the words of things. You can say, okay, I get it. I take it for granted. This, almost take it on principle that these types of realms or these types of embodiments or processes are possible. But in the end, the real question is, how do you get from there to there? How do you get from, even to the astral? And honestly, astral is about as high as anyone in the culture tends to go if they, walk a what's called a deeply spiritual journey, or this type of stuff. They rarely get beyond the astral in that. But even so, 99.9% of the population will never even get there, will they? So what's the bridge? I think that's my question. I'm allowed to have questions, right?
Yeah.
Only if you answer them.
Only if I answer them, right?
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes you don't need an answer, you just need the question. And actually, how do we get there? I mean, that's the journey we're all on. I mean, it's like, who gives a fuck how we get there? I don't really care how I get there, provided I'm on the journey. And so it's about engaging. It's about making whatever it is you're doing in your life very real for you. And if you have belief, and if you have an understanding of the foundation of your life and who you are, then if you engage and you make sure, it's eminent way. I can remember many years ago when we went through the eminent way, talking about the courtesy and the rudeness and various other aspects of being there at that time. And one of the things that went very, very deeply in is just don't get personally involved. There is no right, there is no wrong. You're on a journey. Say yes to everything. And if you don't like it, don't do it anymore. Learn wherever you can. So it's a process of movement, filling up and actually becoming nourished in such a way that you can move on.
So you said one word that I want to see if we can open up a bit more, because it's a dangerous word in this type of work, and that's belief. Belief in what? Because
in
there
you.
are, okay, in self.
In you. You must believe in you. If you do not believe in you, then you've actually founded your life on wobbly foundations.
Right.
And you're doing stuff that actually you've been told to do. It's where you become invaded by society, by right and wrong, by whether you're liked or disliked. And one of the things that I've found in my 65 years is I don't really care what people think. And it's a massive liberation, because I just don't care. If I feel good about who I am and I believe in my journey, then that's good enough.
Yeah, but what got you there? I mean, does it take 65 years of living in the culture and standing for something and principles in oneself? Does it take that time to get there? Or how do you get there? See, this is what I'm on about a little bit, because I do agree in the value of that. It's very liberating not to care what people think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
Orman.
it is. It can be crippling when people kind of run your life like that.
Yeah. But that's a process, right? We're talking about. Is everyone still with me?
Yep.
Yes.
I just posed the question. I thought to myself, hang on a minute. When does belief stop and you become what you believe about?
Good point. Good point.
You know, because all you spend your whole life believing in something, you know, I mean,
Good
if
point.
you are something, it's what I meant about the mystic, isn't it? Pierce picked that one up straight away. That's right. Yeah. You know, when you are something, very often the terms and conditions on you getting there alter.
Yes.
You yourself take on a different structure. You
Yes.
yourself become something, but it isn't necessarily something that might win you a degree or an Oscar or something like that. But it's something that you improve or add to complement your life, seeing as it's your life, not someone else's. You know, when people don't have all the facts and all the learning or all the ability or all the possibility, beliefs, the next best step, isn't it? You can believe yourself and in yourself, but where are you going with it? That's the point. I mean,
yeah, that is a good point. That is a really good point.
Positive thinking or something stupid like or negative, you know, or whatever else. You know, go to JERDF and all those kind of works and so on and so forth. You get enough of that, you know, based in it. But the answer is, in the end, that it's you that you're born on an in-breath.
Yeah.
No one's ever born on an out-breath. And you die on an out-breath. You never die on an in-breath. You know, it's kind of strange how life has arranged it like that. It's almost magical, really. And in between, there's you. The point is, when I die, or before I die, I at least want to know there was some point or purpose or achievement in the life I've had. But it isn't that what I've embodied upon myself, I don't take with me. You only take what you are with you. And that's where Pierce was at the very beginning, about the difference between the who of you and the what of you. What you are is what you are. Who you are is a circus of life. It's the event of belief. These are the who's of you. But the what of you is what you close your eyes with at the end of the day and wake up with in the morning, and whoever is in control of it. Because it isn't necessarily yours.
Yeah.
You know, we're full of all sorts of things that don't belong to us. I was on about this. Didn't we discuss this last time we was here last Sunday? Didn't that come up? About the fact that, look, you know, the point is, you call yourself a right person. You say, well, I'm all me. But, you know, when you look at your behavior during the day, you know, you're a different person when you're running for a bus or getting into the car than you are when you're in doing your shopping. And you're a different person to that when you're in the bath. And then you're a different person to that when you're having a very important conversation with the grandchildren. Okay. And you're a different person than when you're having a conversation with your partner or your wife or your husband or whatever else. And there's all these different people in us. And there's one that will drive you down the shop because it likes red dresses. And she'll go down and buy a dress, and she's got the dress, the person's satisfied, and the blue person takes over, and halfway home she decides to go back and change it for a blue one. This is all human behavior. And somehow we come out of all of that, something permanent. But if I was to count the number of people, out of, say you're 100 people, you might only occupy 50% of those people. The rest are influenced or brought about by your upbringing, your indoctrination, influences of life, what you have to do, you know, conversations with the milkman, Jones the milk is an influence in you, and all this sort of thing. And then when you take that away, you only got half a life. It's not half of it's not yours. So if you've lived 100 years, 50 years of that you spent with people running your life that aren't you, even though it was you there. You know, and then so don't be surprised if it gets worse, that you come home one day and the car's gone. And then suddenly later on it's turned up again. And then someone turns up and says, well, you know, I mean, I've been living in you for the last 50 years. It's my car too. Just admit that's my car. You kind of get the picture here. So if you look at all the great teachings in the world, they all say something similar, and that is that eventually there is a whole person of you That should be the case in you, because that whole person has three essential, this is why the triangle, you see, it's a structure. You're right about that, absolutely right. There are three qualities of that structure, and that is what you are at the very core of yourself, see? And the first is biped, the first part, and that is you have a unique individuality, which eventually brings about a unique identity of self. That's something that sits right at the core of you. That's something, if everything else in your life was stripped away, would be standing there left as a person of you. You also have a planetary content.
Yeah.
It's the being of the great planet we live on itself. That's how we have an inner life. That's what the inner life is. That's your connection and relationship with the planet, the air you breathe, the signals, the vibrations, and whatever else, minus generally what the culture's managed to use on your behalf to produce a cultural you. And then you also have an elemental side. Elementals, I'm sorry, Piers. I told you. Say, hey, Orman. I'm sorry. Piers knows all about this anyway. You know, you have an elemental side to finish it off then.
Yeah.
Now, that's what eminent work is about. In the first place, it was brought about in the 70s and 80s because it was time for whatever was around, especially in this country, England, to develop work of another kind outside of the esoteric domain of normality and into an actuality of self, because you have an elemental nature, content, presence. And this is where new knowledge begins to work for you, because whereas the person who doesn't have any content or development in that nature of themselves would need ritual to practice its works. A human being that has a developed elemental nature doesn't need ritual. It doesn't need the theatre. It doesn't need the props. Because it's like, you know, you open the door of your house and walk in without knocking, do you?
Yeah,
you know, those foreigners in you should knock on the door, and then you open the door and say hello to yourself. You know, oh, I'm the shopping person in you, and then you go back into yourself, you know, that kind of thing. But you don't need all of those things, because you can walk into the elemental domain, which there is, because you have its origin, you have its pedigree, you have its sign upon you. You are also elemental in nature. That's very much disguised in your outward life, you see. So this is a higher kind, for the moment, of esoteric involvement in the self, not in a work of life, about the development of the person of you. Because I've always said the only reason I ever do it is because it's got to do with me. It has to do with you. It's got to be about yourself. Otherwise, you might as well do it for someone else, you know. And what's the point? You're already doing that with 50 odd people that are strangers in you, that have half of your life and you have no control over it.
Yeah.
If you see what I'm saying. So even with the notion or the idea of that, you've got to start. You've got a foothold. You've got to weigh in to do a different kind of journey or work where it's adding to yourself. And the reintroduction by this, because of this, into adding more ability to your life. Right, Piers, wouldn't you say so? Would you say that's fair? I mean, I'm talking about, like, as an example, the basic divinations that people have but don't use because it's not required in the cultural life. Yes?
Well, I'm totally with you.
You might throw a rest there, if you see what I mean, you know.
But yeah, where this is leading though is already we're enhancing and evolving, right? That triangle. We started off with form, process, and structure, but that's not enough. That's just that's the canvas, that's the scaffolding upon which something else is built. None of those things stand on their own. So an elevation of process what would that be? Attendance, connections.
Exactly. Containment. Development of what it is you contain in yourself.
Well,
Embodiment.
so
and
I
so
think
on and so forth.
containment down here though, right?
Yes. Yes.
Down
But
at- down at the-
there's embodiment and containment, right?
So structure, that would be embodiment. That the next evolution of that, right?
That's
Of
right.
structure would be an embodiment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Based on that
Evolution of
structure.
form is containment.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
the higher form of process would be connection, wouldn't it? That's where it would start,
Right.
because that's where everything trickles down from.
Now, you're talking about natural law, see, because that's the criteria, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, creational law starts at 2, but natural law, which we are involved in because we're organic, starts at 3, not 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you take 2 wires out of the plug, you get an explosion, right? That's creational. That's how it began, according to what they tell us, anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And it
Sorry,
also,
is this getting
number
boring?
3
Well,
offers
I can't-
stability.
What? It's
3
a
is
three-page
stable.
conversation, isn't it? Go on, Kay, Mr. KK Pierce. He's just down up 3 times.
Yeah. Go ahead,
We're
just jump in.
crowding
I
it
can't
out, man.
listen. I can't read the chats because it's too much walking up to the keyboard and everything. So if you just jump in, please. This is open. Carl, did you have something?
Well, I kind of wanted you to restate what, in your own words, what Orman is saying. Maybe it's because he's speaking British English or something.
Right.
And I can't.
Can I say
can't
something? I've got to say this. I've got to say this. Listen, it isn't route, it's route. You go on a route, not a route. Every time I hear that on Hollywood films, I what? You know, it's route. Okay.
So I may need a little translation here from somebody who's bilingual, knows the difference between British and American English.
Well, I speak 4 languages fluently.
And what I'm hearing though is that
But American, I don't.
where I'm nothing but have potentialities. If you're something and then the potentialities are limited.
Well, it's more than that.
I don't understand you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is
If you know,
different
hang on.
languages.
You know, I understand the word potentiality. You know, I mean, potentiality is like optimism. Now, this is American. The American view of optimism is when someone else tells you to cheer up when all the cards are stacked on their side. Isn't that right? Wouldn't you agree? Right? Exactly. Yeah. But that's not the same in English, because in English, it's what Winston Churchill said. English people are opportunists. You know, they're so good at it that they'll stumble across an opportunity, like they stumble across someone laying in the road. They'll pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and go on as though nothing's happened. You know.
So what are you saying, Carl? Because I haven't quite arrived at it.
Potentiality.
Yeah, if you're something, if you're an eraser, then all you can do is erase. But if you don't fix on being an eraser, and then that object can be, who knows what else, a weapon, a thing to stand on to be taller.
It's like a
could be
blackboard, isn't
different
it?
things.
Yeah, like a blackboard. I mean, a blackboard is a teaching machine for intelligent people, but you know, it's a threat to the ignorant. It's food for a woodworm. I mean, you know, we get recycled too, don't we? Yeah.
It's a canvas for the artist.
Exactly.
So
an instrument
I mean,
for a crook.
Something that I wrote to Pierce was, I am an individual consciousness unit. Consciousness, that's the to me the core word, consciousness. But am I an individuated consciousness unit? Do you get that?
Yes, I do.
Are we part of the collective, or are we individual? Is that what you're saying?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, everything is consciousness. There's nothing but
Yes,
consciousness.
it is. Yeah.
There's nothing but consciousness. But am I something that will persist, that has will, autonomy, or am I just part of the, part of the consciousness field? Maybe it's not either or, maybe it's both.
Maybe
what
it's
is-
both
what
at
is
different
consciousness?
times.
Well, there's
This
one
is
answer.
why this is
to that,
almost
isn't it?
impossible.
There's a simple answer to that, Carl.
Okay.
That depends on what you're in possession of, isn't it? What about the awakened life? Do you have an awakened life? You've got to have an awakened life of some sort to have a conscious life. They're two different lives. Trouble with the culture is it tends to bring everything together, but they're not all together. They are different things. Consciousness is a different octave of life altogether to the awakened life. The awakened life is a planetary affair, but something that lives above a planetary level of life needs consciousness. You have to have consciousness. All right. But the awakened life can seem similar to the conscious nature of life, but it actually isn't, because it's more based in the being than the mentality or the intellect. There's a being learning in things, isn't there?
I think.
I mean, the fact is, then it's in what you're in possession of, but how much of yourself do you own, including your mind? What's yours? What are you in it?
That is a $64,000 question, as we say.
That's the work that Pierce is on about, because surely the first thing that would be important in any esoteric journey would be to come to know what you are, and as a secondary issue, who you are, because there's no need to impress anybody about what it is you can do. You can do what you can do. The eraser can rub out chalk and a lot of other things, but we ain't tried those other things out yet. So the eraser can become a lot more than that. And that's potentially everything that there is. It has the ability to become something greater than itself. So evolution and development is possible for all things.
Potentiality.
I mean, in this day and age, you could give that eraser some legs so it rubs it out for you. You can do things like that now, can't you? Automate it, as they say.
Like the
Stick a chip in it and it will start talking to you too. I mean, this is the world we live in, isn't it? It's not like Jerdev's time or those kind of people, or Plato's time and all the rest of it. I mean, this is the age. I mean, it wouldn't be, otherwise Zaya wouldn't live in it, and Mike wouldn't live in it, and people like that wouldn't live in it, you see, but we are. It's us, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the reality of it, right? We can't.
It's the reality of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So then the question is, it's like working on the principle that, we're looking at, is it your consciousness? Is it something you share with everybody else? You've got potential.
That's the collective, isn't it? Where it all
that's the collective, and that's very astral in its nature.
It is.
It's incredible. It's both. It's it's like everything is so bound together. You can't have one thing without another thing. So it begs the question: how much do we really need to know who we are? Once it's like, for example, it's that you've got. I'm kind of struggling to ask the question here in a funny way, but it's like I know that politics plays a place in my life, and it's not me. I know that capitalism plays a place in my life that isn't me. I'd like to see all those things gone, but I know that's not my choice. And so I know a lot of things about the world that I would not ascribe to me, but I do understand that I have to live within that environment and find a way of getting over it, and find a way of not becoming so coloured by those influences that I become fearful, that I become competitive, that I become scared of loss, and all of those things. And I kind of, in my own little life, I found a way of doing that. It's like I might not be the most developed person on the planet, and for God's sake, I don't want to be. I'm not. I don't need the leg up to have station in that way. But what I've come to within myself is I no longer care who I am. I'm not bothered anymore. I'm more interested in experience and process. And I don't need to know who I am because I can get that reflected back from others. And people will reflect back to me, as you said, Orman, you know, are you the girl that goes shopping to buy a red dress? Well, people will reflect that back to me. Or am I the person that goes dancing? People will, and all of those things are part of me. And they're all processes within which I function at a planetary level. But I am also really, and also at a planetary level, I'm very aware of elemental existence. But the bottom line is I don't think I care anymore who I am. I just don't care. I've spent too long thinking about it.
Yeah, but Joan, I mean, the issue in any planetary situation is a collective.
Yeah.
Okay? Because you're breathing the same air. I mean, if the air over India was different, you'd have to pay to have your lungs changed, you know?
Yeah, you would.
But it's not. So everything on this planet is essentially culturally a collective.
Yes.
And it doesn't leave much room for that individuality and thus an identity based on that individuality rather than a role of life such as a doctor and an aircraft pilot and things of this kind, because that's the issue of your life. But it doesn't help you if you have knowledge of or you are aware of the fact that what we live from breathing in to the last breath of our life is only one stage of our life on this planet, not our existence, our life on this planet. So if you add into that the possibility of such processes, which is a planetary process, not a human one, by the way, of reincarnation as an example, and that's a very big subject because there's many sides to reincarnation, then part of the issue of your being what you are, if you've got any sense about what it is you do and learn and practice, would be to accommodate that situation when, as it is going to, whether you like it or not, it happens. Right?
Yeah.
Now, let me say something here. I'm not trying to be unfair here, all right? I'm all right so far, Pierce.
Oh, absolutely fine.
You know, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's Pierce's show, you know, and it's, I mean, look, I've got cancer, see, more than one kind and all the rest of it. So I'll be lucky if I'll be around by not this Christmas, but the following Christmas. And people can't understand why I'm so easy about it.
Yeah.
I'm very serious. I mean, they say, oh, he's just not afraid to die. No, it's not got nothing to do with the fact I'm not afraid to die. It's just I know exactly what is going to happen to me when I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I was going to be afraid about anything, I hope I don't get conked out by a number 30 bus at 70 miles an hour because it's a bit messy, you know. I'd like to do it in the middle of the Laura 2 or something, and cough out, and that's the end of it, you know. And then, you know, and say he was a great guy, but he conked out at 3:30, you know, that kind of thing. You know, and I can be as lib as cynical, even if you like, as this, because I do honestly know, and so does Pierce. So you don't know what's hiding in people. How do we know what's hiding in any of you? I mean, what you are, you see, we may not know who you are, but I'll guarantee you before long, we'll know exactly what you are. You see, because that you can't hide. You can't hide that. It is there. But what it is and who's in control of it. So a long time ago, I made a choice. I said to myself, no, look, I'm not going to win. I'm one of 9,000 million, or currently being reduced by COVID, but nevertheless, 9,000 million, right? So I've got to take it as an issue, my own personal issue. Now, this is something I would get personally involved about because it's to do with me, in the issue of me, about what I am. I don't get personally involved about the outer life because that's a great big game out there. So I think to myself, well, I've got to live, I've got to earn a living, I've got commitments. I've got to bring up kids. I brought up kids, you know. I mean, I've got 5 grandchildren as far as I know. I don't know what else they've got up to. So I know about 5 of them. Let's put it that way. See? And it's just like someone said to me, how many children you got? I said 2 that I know of. But I mean, I didn't bring into account my early life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too.
Good looking like Pierce and, you know, clever and strong and fit and all the rest of it. See? So I said, right, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll do a deal. You can have 20% of my life.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give 20% of my life to the culture to do well in. You don't need any more than that. We only use 10% of our brain anyway. So 20%'s overdoing it, I reckon. So you're going to have 20% of the life. I want the other 80. I want it to belong to me. And you can have keep all of those little people in that 20%. You can have 200 of them in there if you really want to get at me. So I live a nightmare. There's different people sleeping on my behalf. You know, I mean, whatever they do with me is that, but the rest belongs to me. And I'll take on a name. That's why I chose the word Orman. See, I'll take on a name that I will do my life works within. And that's what that name stands for. Hello, Cassiopeia. Yes. There's Cassiopeia, right? And that's the rest. I've got to play around with. I've got to add myself into that because most of it's, you know, a wreck. That's happened in the culture.
Well,
you know, what lays on the bottom of the ocean and shakes? It's called a nervous wreck. And that's exactly what I was, a nervous bloody wreck. Out of my brains is fear and that. I mean, what do you expect? But if you take control, when it says you take control, the learning and the improvement and the development and the works you do in your life as the purpose of life, especially if it's going to account for other processes you learn about such things as reincarnation, it is a planetary process that the human has found and learned to use. So you can come round again. Trust me. And that's what I love about YouTube. Yeah, I'm at it again, aren't I? Sorry. Yes,
no, I want to put this in.
Is giving me the wink. Watch it, boy. Oh, you'll get in there. I'm going to start preaching to you like I'm preaching it. And then when you see the fingers, you're in trouble, you know. Sorry, Pierce. Go on, you carry on.
No.
You follow the theme of it, right? But at least I have me. I have my life. And I have a great deal of purpose in my life, including what's next and more, because there is more. There's a huge creation out there that human can be a part of. But you've got to learn how to live with unfortunately, things that you may not agree with, that are a greater truth than you. And that's difficult.
Let me drop this in because
you know, you take over. I'm going to sip a cup of tea.
No, I want to put this in because really, you know, the truth of it is, Orman, that if people even had that reversed, if people said, you can have 80% of my life and I'll keep 20, they would still actually be in a position of winning, because it's not like that. It's not like, you know, this is my decision. I'm going to keep 80 and the culture can have 20. It's actually a process of ownership over time, right? Where you gradually become that.
Well, I tell you what, that 80% is where I will not feel guilty about nicking it back from the thing that took it from me in the first place.
Yeah.
Including my abilities. I am very clairvoyant. I'm empathic. I am a medium too. And I'm not talking about you used to sort of thing, you know, is there anybody there? Knock, knock, knock. I don't mean all that kind of crap. It's rubbish. It's total nonsense. I mean, you can even look on YouTube now, right? The next best thing now isn't Psychic Sally or anybody like that, or the woman from Dallas, isn't it? I mean, you know, the new psychic from Dallas, etc., etc. It's our dear police constables from, is it Dallas? Is it? It's Houston. Houston Police Force have set up a department, and they are now psychic policemen, really. And they go around these buildings and they they've got a medium with them. Well, she calls herself a medium, but she's not actually. She's an empath, but they don't know the difference because they call themselves, well, hello, I'm a psychic medium clairvoyant. Really? Yeah, and I belong, to the British Society of Mediums, do you? I don't get stuff. I mean, that kind of thing, you see. It is like that. I don't need that, neither do you. You don't need that, see? But they've gone out and they've gone into these buildings, and then there's all these things happening. So chill down the old back, the sort of the hair stands on end and the chair moves and blah, 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 all general sort of like kiddie stuff, right? And then because it wasn't going to, they started to bring in the copper thing, right? So they're now saying, do you have the right to be here? I mean, they're now arguing with the ghost. I am not joking. You can watch it yourself, right? Did you have the right to be here? You're trespassing. You shouldn't be here in the dark. And he pulls out a stun gun and goes like this. He says, know what we are. What? I mean, this world's gone bananas. See? Right? Yeah. Totally off their scruples. And I can say it like that because it's nothing like that at all. When you know that you can be something, it's possible to regenerate it or restore it, take it out, repair it, put it back, and become clairvoyant. But I'm talking about naturally clairvoyant, the natural life, the original design of ourselves. It's been changed, altered throughout the whole ages. Aliens have had us. We come out of a laboratory in some areas, and all, we're nothing like the original model. The original model is a monkey. And we appeared. Monkeys to us doesn't fit. We got their blood. I'll be honest with you, I think someone fiddled with humanity. And we're a produce from it. That's what I reckon. But then that's only my view. Anyway, the fact is, that's nice, isn't it? Pierce is an alien. I knew there was something about him. Really, seriously. He's not normal. He does things, Anyway, so I think to myself, well, how does clairvoyance really actually work? It's a natural function. It works on a mechanical basis. All of the divinatory processes are mechanical. They are a process. They start at A, they finish at B, and you can, if you know how it works, use it yourself at any time you like. But your mind hasn't been developed to cope with all of those things. Because the things you learn, the things you see, the things you understand, you are trained to behave in a certain way towards. It's a ghost. I mean, come on, you watch the films. There's this woman. She walks in to take the tea. She's a housemaid. And next thing you see is this tray with all the tea come flying through the door, followed by this huge scream, right? And there's the woman laying in bed. I mean, as if it was going to get out and attack her. So what's the scream for? I mean, see, you're trained. You're trained in your responses more than you are in your initiations. Really, it's a general rule of culture. Always train them in the response before you train them in the initiation of it. Because that's what you want to keep, isn't it? A culture. So they all do the same. But to stand against a collective like this, 9,000 million people, you've got to hang on to yourself for grim death. Because the influence, the draft, the pull from the individual to that is enormous, Joan. Anybody
I know.
knows.
I know. I understand that.
That's where you need. Go on, Carl.
Orman, you're saying a tremendous amount. You're providing a lot of.
I'm sorry, I said you should stop me. You tell him to tell me to shut up.
It's hard to stop you. What I would like.
It's awful.
What I would like is maybe like I'm going, whoa, like a lot of terms are undefined. And I don't know that we're speaking the same language. I don't think so, because I'm at places I'm going, what's he mean by that?
Speaking the language of my experience of where I've been.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that Pierce.
None of what I got came from.
Hold on a moment. I think that I'd like Pierce to sort of, what do they say? Chunk it down, something like that. To restate it.
In English, we say water it down. It sounds better than chunk,
I don't,
I mean,
you
we got a
know, I'm
chunky
not sure,
pie.
I'm not sure I'm using that term correctly, but I'd like Pierce to restate it. Because I can understand, you know, he'll say smaller pieces and maybe I can understand it better. Because without defining some terms, we use the same word, but we could have very different references for it,
Well, he
like
did
planetary
say,
body and.
Carl,
Huh?
he did say in the first place, it goes everywhere. And once you start and you open up more than one domain of something, you have options. And those are the options that you're actually looking for in practicality. That is the position in which you have more option, more choice, more development, more everything, including more of self if you make those domains your purpose or your work or your involvement or your journey, to use words you've all used, see? So I do it in concentrate. So I tell you what, I'm going to make a cup of tea. I don't know about anybody else, but I've got a headache. It's been so hot here today. It's ridiculous.
Yes, it's later in England. It's tea time.
Sorry, if I open the window, I live in the middle of town. You're going to get the whole of Colchester town centre talking.
Colchester.
Yeah. Why, is that good or bad?
No, I just wondered where you were living these days.
Colchester, yeah. I came here about July. I was living in a place called Lowestoft before, and then before that I was living everywhere. I mean,
I used to live on the Isles of Scilly, spelled Scilly. Don't get confused. And I've got to say, it was living on an island, and also an island called Lundy, which had 14 people on it for the whole, and I gave my children a home education. And so I was able to kind of detach from quite a lot of cultural stuff. And that was after I'd left the EMIN. So I kind of detached, and then I discovered a lot more about the core me and what I'd become. But interestingly, I've recently moved to Glastonbury. And of course, everybody here is a bloody witch. You know, they all go away in conical hats and cloaks and stuff.
I lived in the city of Wells. You should know the city of Wells.
I love Wells.
You know that film? Was it? What is it? What's that film they made there?
Pass.
No, Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz.
Oh, no idea.
Yeah.
That is in the city of Wells. It's the
Yeah.
smallest city in the world because it's got a cathedral.
Yes.
But I knew quite a lot of the people there because they used the people who owned the places they did it in as part of the actors.
Right.
So there's a guy I used to be friends with. They're firing a bloody Tommy gun at my favourite actor, you know, like this, and all the rest of it. I tell you, life is small like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's off the point. Listen, the thing is, what I was going to say to you is that, you see, the reason I came to Colchester is because Lowestoft is like the backwaters of middle-class England. You go there to retire, right? And you got these beautiful beaches. I never saw a policeman for 2 years. I mean, it's that kind of a place. Sleepy on a Thursday, dead on a Friday, doesn't exist on a Saturday, and you go to heaven on a Sunday. That's what it's like there, right? But every time I came to the city, my mind came alive. So I'm spread out in the being of myself, out in the country. But when you come to cities, there's a different dynamicism in the air or the airs and graces, you know, in the air of the place and the atmosphere of it all. And your mind comes alive. And in this day and age, it's more of a mental culture than it is a feeling culture. Yes? But I happen to be a kind of more of a mental person than a feeling person. That's probably why I made so many mistakes with all my feelings, but that's the way things work, isn't it? You know? So I'm going to make a cup of tea, Pierce. So you're going to have to explain to Mr. Cole, if you can.
Yeah.
I did warn you, you know, to sort of like say, hey, hang on a minute, I'll come back though, if that's all right. Okay. Yeah, make a cup of tea.
Carl, what a lot has been said, and I think it would be more useful instead of me recapping everything and going through it all in a completely different language, is if I find out where you're at, not physically, but where you're at with what's been said. And if you have something question coming up that I can actually work into and answer directly. I think that would be more useful.
Frankly, Orman's presentation is kind of rambling, and I guess I'm a more linear person, and I hear certain that I there's places where I think that we're maybe speaking the same language, and then he says something else, and I'm going, what does he mean by that? I'm not clear. And he uses metaphors. It was a lot presented. I mean, maybe it was the whole of the work presented as spontaneously through how he's processed it, but I didn't. I got lost in that. I mean, I wasn't sure if it was a difference of languages, or I'm not familiar with him. I'm not familiar with his. So that's why I wanted. Huh?
I said, you're lost. Let's find you then. You got lost in it. I understand it because the way, here's the thing, like you have to take it as it comes sometimes, right? We can't control whether it's going to come at us linearly or multidimensionally or, anything like that. But there is something to be said for the amazing adaptability, right, that we have in there. But I also, you've shared some of your background with me, and the problem therein is that a lot of the terms might sound the same, but the essence behind it isn't, right?
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you want me to go into that and what the differences are, but I will take a path with you on this if you point me in the direction you want to go.
I'm here to listen and learn from essentially you, Pierce.
Right.
I wanted you to continue with your diagrams on the board and finish those up, because that was, I could build on that. The triangle and the thing you had on the right of it or left of it, and maybe on your side. That
this
thing
over here?
there. Yeah.
Well, it's a triangle. Sure. Hold on. But it's quartered out because that's how this is the part of the triangle that we don't see, right? This is what's going on behind the scenes.
Okay.
Here's the thing, and I will talk about Gurdjieff for a bit because I think that's your foundation from what you've shared with me.
Yeah.
The reason why it just flat out mostly doesn't work is because so much was left out, and that which was taken into it wasn't really even practiced. It went into a role of repetition, which is what this planet likes to do, right? And now you've got Gurdjieff groups, they sit around, they read Beelzebub's Tales to their grandfather, and they practice self-remembering, and they focus on their big toe and try to get that sense of feeling. But the truth is that there are very, very, very few people that actually will ever work for. And yet everyone missed probably the most important thing. Listen, if Gurdjieff had come to this planet and said, study the laws, and then just died right there, as uneventful as that sounds, that would probably be the best thing he could have done, right? So I had this symbol drawn up here, but I mean, I can't recall what these are, but you probably can. Carl, the 5 being obligations or whatever, whatever it's called.
Yes, park the log duty.
Yeah, exactly, right. Can you name them?
I've tried the other day and I failed, but to continue learning, to take care of your physical body.
Right. Okay, let's stop there. What is that saying in essence? That's saying
keep yourself healthy and strong.
Yes, because you need this. You need this to do the work, right? You have to maintain it, and as long as you can do the work. In that disembodied form, after one dies, if one is so fortunate to have such a thing, you actually can't do the work. You can't grow in that, right?
Yes.
It needs this kind of in ecology and environment. So, okay, so that's the first one. We get that. The second.
We have to help one another. That's not the way he says it.
Way, way, way too far down the line. The second one, I believe, second or third, is to have a pressing need for self-development.
Yes.
Right? Third one has something now, and this is where it should stop. The other two are way too far out in the distance, but the third one, if I recall, is to do with having a drive to understand the laws.
Yes.
Right? Had he come and said those three things and then just vanished, it might have had a chance on this planet. But no one does that. Very few people actually go into the laws. They're all drawing enneagrams and drawing, but they don't actually go out and collect examples. And this is what I've been on about many, many, many times. Sachin can attest to this almost every time. It's go find examples for yourself. I don't know if you were here for this, big ray of creation triangle thing that I did a couple weeks ago, but that's not based on something I read. It's not based on something I was told. It's based on actually doing the work and going out and collecting examples of the laws. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is actually how it works, and it's not just rambling, and it's not just a diagram. It's every time you dig a little deeper into it, it opens up more and it connects more and this type of thing. Now, what happens in this regard, and you can really throw self-remembering and self-observation to a degree, you can actually throw it out the window if you absorb yourself in the work on the laws, because what that does is it brings you into a connection with that source. We talked about consciousness. Right. Bye, Joan. Thank you. I think she's still here.
Sorry. No, yeah, I'm sorry. I
Fine.
wasn't sure how long it was scheduled for. Thank you very much to everybody. Lovely to
welcome,
see
yeah.
you all. And I hope you have a good day. Orman, it's lovely to see you. You won't remember me, but I remember you.
I remember you too. Don't you be surprised.
I had a lot of time with Tagia. I was from the Lincoln group, the original Lincoln group.
You really? The original Lincoln group. I
The
didn't even know
original
about
Lincoln
such
group.
things.
It then went over to Nottingham.
Oh, right. Okay.
We abandoned those green lands. So yes, it's lovely to cast eyes on you again.
Yes. Okay. Good to see you.
Okay, you take care. Thank
All
you.
right, see you
Bye,
next Sunday,
everybody.
maybe. Next Sunday, then.
Yeah. It'd be nice to know what length so that I can set aside. And I'm sorry I go on a lot. Can't help it.
Isn't there a website? Isn't there a website, Pierce?
Yeah, Joan, I'll send you all the details of how to find out everything.
Okay.
for next time,
Okay. All right. That's great. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
Right.
Nice meeting
Bye.
you.
See you.
Bye.
I thought
So, Carl.
the recording was available too, wasn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I'll make sure everyone gets sent out.
Can't you have a recording without keeping a copy of yourself? Come on.
So, Carl, let me come back to this. Okay.
Yeah.
None of that other stuff actually matters, and it's too early. It was an attempt. It wasn't the way, the path. But what he did get right is put yourself in the laws. Now, Gurdjieff never even mentioned the law of two, and the law of two almost comes before the law of three.
Yes.
You know the law of two. Have you heard of it?
I'm glad you don't play cards. It almost came before the law of three. I mean, come on.
Well, no, see, because it doesn't happen
I mean,
that
can't
way.
trump a jack with a jack, right? Yes.
Listen, here's what I mean. Okay, Carl, this will make sense to you. But you have this kind of ambiguous absolute, right? Can you see? Is it zoomed in enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
And then, what do you call that? World one, right? Doesn't matter. Now,
The absolute. Okay.
the absolute. Yeah. Now, world three, whatever that is, okay, that is consisting of three forces. I won't go into what those three forces are. It doesn't matter at this point. What I'm on about is showing you how you can work the laws and discover the rest of it and what comes to you as a result of doing this, okay? There are only 6 ways you can get around a triangle, even though it's got 3 forces, right? If you call this point 1, 2, and 3, then you go 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, and then you have to go backwards, right? There's only 6 possible ways around a triangle. But already now, the law of 3 has introduced the law of 6 because there's not 3 ways around a triangle, there's 6 ways. And so this creates a concept of something new in itself, which is now a doubling. Imagine it this way, right? The law of 3 says, wait a minute. I actually have 6 ways around, which means that I can now create a new form in this. And now you've got positive, negative, neutral. And if it creates this new form, which by the way is inverted, which goes into why, eventually goes into why we see everything upside down, right? From reality, the way inverted. But if this is neutral, this is negative, then this has to be positive, doesn't it? For this other triangle to work, right? And so now you have the first example of the law of 2, which is confirmation. And you know this is how it works, right? In the human body. When the sperm enters the ovum, its first act is confirmation. It splits in 2 and it looks at itself and goes, yeah, right, that's me, right? And then it works by aggregation. So the second phase would be to fill out, to grow. So first split, second grow, then split, then grow. And so the next aspect is aggregation. And this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. So if you want to call it world 12, whatever, doesn't matter. But now we have all these positive, negative, neutrals here. And so what does this become? If this is negative, this is positive, this has to be neutral. This has to be negative. And then it does it again in aggregation form and I'm sorry, in confirmation, aggregation, confirmation, aggregation. All right. This is the only aspect really that matters about the law of 2. And if you begin to work through this, you start to see how all of this works. Because listen, if you start with, by the way, when you get down to world 48 or 96 or whatever you want to call it here, you've got this massive triangle going on. And what we see is this outer force, right? This would be our hydrogen, to put it in Gurdjieff's terms. But what's really going on is that there's all these other forces inside going on that we don't have access to. This is why people can't actually do in this way. Now, the process of the reverse process, this is creation, right? This is the ray of creation. And it gets thicker and doubled and thicker and doubled and thicker and doubled till it reaches the point where it can't anymore, or the growing end of the ray of creation. So if that's creation, then what is the return process? What does it imply? Well, to me, it implies actually not so much of what I can aggregate, what I can accumulate, but actually what I can let go of. Because when you let go of things, you become more free. Have I found you? You said you were lost as far as where we're going with things. What I'm saying to you is that the basic foundation of this is to fall in love with the laws and don't read about anything, really. Just go, because you have a complex, you have a human complex, you can go out and make these kinds of observations. Self-observation, self-remembering, it doesn't work for most people. What it creates is a religion, which is where the 4th way is now. It's a religion. They just don't call it that. Does that help?
Agreed that the 4th way is a religion now. It's a church.
Yeah,
I agree.
Right, because that's what this planet does. It religiousizes things, or another way to say that is that it imbues it with its culture. Not the natural culture, because there is such a thing, but the culture of, well, wrong manufacturer to begin with. So this is where this all starts. And if you know this, if you actually, I'm not just saying this, the law of 3, but if you know if you fall in love with the laws and you use the faculties you were given to start this exploration, everything Orman says is making sense. Everything I say makes sense, but that's really the foundation. Nothing can occur outside of the laws. It's where it needs to start, right? And so I think probably a very useful thing would be to go through some groundwork stuff in future interactions, right? Just start with the basics.
Yeah.
Start there. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that helps locate you. Where Orman is at is a very multifaceted thing. And there's a lot of assumptions that everyone has done the basic work, the groundwork that I'm referring to.
Yeah.
I realize that's not always the case. And yet, at the same time, I do hope you're go beyond the thinking. I can see that, probably that's the big part for you, right? You want that logical thinking, but actually just sense for a moment. If you're sensitive, you'll probably feel that the atmosphere around you in this place that you're sitting right now, I mean, physically, that it feels different than when you started. And that's because of the process that's going on. So whatever you listen, anytime I work with a group of people, I can't make sure that every single person gets exactly what they need from it. This time it might be one person or two people. Next time it might be another two people. But being in the process and being engaged in it will sort of filter through. Yeah. I hope
Yes.
that does help.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Right. How's the tea, Orman?
I don't know. I got involved in what you were saying. I never heard it put that way before.
Well, at
Without
least that's
sugar.
how I've added it up.
I'm having to cut out sugar. It's awful. I get this desire for a cream cake. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking of lollipops and all sorts of strange sugary things. So it's either that or I'm losing it. What's that? There's only two kinds of people in the world. Yeah, those that drive themselves around the bend and those that go around naturally. You just got to decide which one you belong to. Isn't that right?
Exactly so. Exactly so. So yeah,
I was just thinking about your thing then, because what was the point of doing anything without a purpose? It doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm old school or something. I don't know, but I see a lot of people living without purpose.
Yeah.
So what are they fulfilling? What are they proving?
Or adopting someone else's purpose.
Who are they paying for their life?
Mm-hmm.
Because they say they think they've got a life, but really the truth is that the culture is living a life through them.
Yeah.
They don't have a life. So what's the purpose? So to deal with it, you have three things. You purpose, process, and potential. Okay. And those three things should always be at the forefront of why a person is doing what they're doing. But in the knowing
One
of
more
what
time
it is
on those
they
three
do.
things: purpose,
Process, and potential. If you have purpose,
yeah, right.
the process, and then that process has potential. Now, if you're on the make for yourself, in other words, you realize that your life isn't as much as it could be or should be, there are things missing, or that there are things that you would like to add back to yourself. I put it, I'm unfortunately, I'm at odds with a lot of things, because I say the human was already these things, but they are not like it now because of history, culture, whatever, previous cultures, etc.
Yeah.
So civilization is a series of cultures for me, not a series of civilizations. That means there's many more cultures, and each culture adds itself to the last one, improves or diminishes what it was.
Yep.
So we are made up of all of that, and we arrived at the end of culture. So it's not our fault that Moses made his mistakes or did what he did. It's not our fault that Harry Higgins got divorced to somebody else in his time, or what the hell has it got to do with us? I mean, that's those cultures, see? But it's explained to us that these are the things that are important. But They're not important to what we actually are. I wanted to know what I am. I wanted to know what I am, who I am, and why I am. I said last time we met, I stood outside a Warren Street tube station in London at 9 o'clock, where you get half of London coming through there, all with bowler hats and overcoats and umbrellas, even if it's sunny. That's how they are down there. And I said to him, can I ask you two questions? First is, what time is it? Because if a person knows the time, there's something about the mind of the person.
Yeah.
Or it's something about the divinatory nature of the person. There's a clue. But the other second was, why are you here?
Yeah.
What is your purpose?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I never got an answer.
From anyone.
If I'd have relied upon the human race to explain it to me, I'd have failed miserably, seriously miserable,
Yeah.
So it's a collective that really doesn't know of itself or what it is.
This goes back to belief, doesn't it?
The point is, it goes back to being able to prove it for yourself. Why do I have to rely upon books?
Yeah.
When you come in my place, I've got books on how to do it. But books on philosophy, give me a bloody headache. I can't do crosswords. It does something to my head. I'm sorry, it's like that. Now you might say, oh, he's illiterate. But I tell you what, there's an old saying that I very much actually think is the case, that always will the illumined person tell the scientist or the intellectual what they seek to discover. And that is the case in my experience.
Mm.
So if I'm going to have a learning, I want it to be actual and practical and have purpose with what it is that I'm here for, what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
So I changed my origins and ideas to those things. So whereas everybody else thinks, what is man here for? Is it here to serve the planet, really? Or is it that the planet's here to serve us? Because I can't see that creation is here to serve us. Well, I've had a big miss out of that one, if that's the case, because you must have had it all, because I never got any of it, if you get my kind of point. See? Yeah. Sachin, I've seen his picture, but I kind of get this feeling he's smiling at us behind it. It's kind of like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Hi, Sachin.
Oh, there he is. See what I
is.
mean? He's a guy, he's like the moon. It keeps hiding behind clouds. And every time you think you see something, there it's gone.
I haven't felt the need to say anything, so I'm just going to shut up and listen.
Oh, you've got plenty to say. Come on. You've missed it. You took yourself out of it, and there you go.
No,
what I'm trying to say is that what is the purpose? I want to, I know from my own experiences at a very early age that I knew more about my school teacher than she did about herself.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So she came out in the class. It's Miss Harris. I hate her. Right? That's a long-term hate. She was a nasty little piece of work at 72 years old, and I was 6. She came out with a box like this. Now, children, and we had to sit there like this with our hands on our head all day. That's what it was like in school in those days. I mean, I'm 74 now. Work out, I was a coming home present from the war. That's where I was. Anyway, so you got new cards in there. And she pulled out cards. She said, now, boys and girls, I've got a word beginning with B. And you're supposed to construct it because it's got 4 letters. This is how they taught you in those days. Very rota, ABC stuff, right? So about, well done, Armin, well done. That's the spirit, that kind of thing, yeah. Then put out another one there. Beginning with C, cart. And you go, oh, well done, Armin, And when I've done it 3 or 4 times, they come here, you. Have you fiddled with this box? Huh? Ah, what? No, I'm serious. It was like that. I spent more time outside the classroom door. I saw it on her. It's very difficult to explain to somebody who's not familiar with this what on her actually means. And yet it's so very simple to do. But you've got to come through all this. What they address it to is you've got to be a member of a society or something like that. It's crazy. But every human is naturally like it, right, Pierce? They are. Mm-hmm. So So I decided, right, that's no good. I'll go in pursuit of that rather than how many bales of wheat Pakistan exported in 1914 because they want me to be an export clerk. I know you get the kind of idea I mean here, right? I've got plenty of friends who burst into tears, not when they see me because I'm so bad, but really because, you know, they only went and got, I know this guy's a brilliant chemist. I mean, he's like top of the tree. And he burst into tears. Oh, what's the matter, old chap? You all right? You know, I thought he won the lottery or something like that because he don't cry. You know, he's like, you bastards, he said. Bastards, he said, I only ever wanted to play the violin. That's all I ever wanted to do. And now they're dead, I can play it. Good. I mean, that literally was the case. That's what happened. So he was a brilliant chemist, but so he was not what he was. It's caused to be something else. That's how it is, right? And I'm not going up that bloody road, no way. So I went in pursuit of that. So you'd find me at the museums, you'd find me in the park, you'd find me in places where you're not supposed to be when you're 6 years old. But that was London just after the war, where nobody locked their front doors. You understand? And kids were out in the street playing fag cards with the local gangs, you know, cigarette packet cards, you know, all that sort of thing, up against the wall at 10 o'clock at night. Not in this day and age, of course, because you're being molested before you even get out the door. You know, it's that kind of a thing, see? But in those days, it wasn't like that. You know, you make sure you come back, you know, and you 11 o'clock, fine, no problem. That's how it was. It was like that. People didn't have much of a family, you know. You remember they were trying to put themselves back after it all, see? So I introduced into my life this kind of idea, purpose, process, which of course leads you up a different kind of path, because I came very quickly to realize that everything that happens and exists on this planet does so according to a criteria or set of natural laws.
There you go. Yep.
And that's how it gets to be in natural laws. Excuse me. I got a throwback that I went in for this oscilloscope, or whatever they call it. They shoved this pipe down my throat, right, to have a look. Because I went to the doctor. I said, what's this going on? I can't swallow anything. They said, ow, that hurts. What's that? So I'm going to send you for a picture, right? So I went in there. So he stuck it down through me. He looked at all my voice box and all that, because I do all this talking. He went down my esophagus. You know, you know what they're like. They like to torture you before they tell you the truth. See? And then he went into my stomach. I found that interesting because I was watching it on the screen, see? Because it wasn't what I thought it'd be like. And then he went into my duodenum. And then halfway down my intestine. Well, how far is he going to go with this bloody pipe? I mean, it was so long, it could have gone across the room. So and then he started taking biopsies and God knows what on the way out. And then he said, you don't have cancer of the throat. You don't have cancer. This is what he said. I like Colchester. They're really down to earth here. If you ever want to live in England, live in Colchester. They're very plain and down to earth, right? Don't go to Hull. That's where Zaya lives. See? They're worse there. Anyway, so he said, you haven't got it. He said, and there's nothing wrong with your stomach. He said, but your duodenum. He said, I just had to take 8 biopsies. Sorry about this, but we'll have to let you know. But because there's COVID, I've got to wait another 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. It's disgusting, really, isn't it? See? But, you know, what I was trying to say in the first place was, I know how it works. I want other people to be able to do it too. Mm-hmm. So the whole point of what I do in my life when it comes to other people, not the issue of me, is to show them how to do it for themselves. I hate gurus, curry chewing pigs. That's what I call them. That's what they really are. Listen, they may be clever in their answers, etc., but they are not the real thing, right? Done the whole trip I have, I can tell you. I don't believe it. It's about the person themselves, what you actually are. And I wanted to reintroduce them all back into my life. And so I am very clairvoyant. But clairvoyance isn't what you think it is. Do you know that clairvoyance is just one simple process, right, Piers? To do, you know, the story of the tuning forks.
Yeah, right.
Right? Isn't
Easy.
that right?
Could teach
Go
that
on
in a
then.
minute.
You say it's easy. I mess it up. You tell them.
No, it's easy. So this is how to be clear. Look, should have named this one "How to Be Clairvoyant." You all know a tuning fork.
How to reintroduce it back into yourself because you know how it works.
Yeah, you know a tuning fork, right? That they use to tune pianos, different musical instruments. It's a certain phenomenon that happens. If I have a tuning fork tuned to A, and I hand you a tuning fork tuned to A, and have you stand some distance away from me, just because you're holding that, if I hit mine, right, like this, then yours, if you listen carefully, yours will also begin to vibrate. And this is the way human life works. This is actually the way that we're designed to work. Other examples, if you've ever been wanting to have car shopping, I've used this example before. You're car shopping, you have a certain vehicle in mind, and all of a sudden you're driving around town and you see them absolutely everywhere. Now, they've always been there before. It's not like they're appearing out of nowhere, but you never noticed them because you didn't have that tuning fork inside in yourself, right? And this is the way clairvoyance works. If you want, look, here's the thing, right? Explain herbal
Good
medicine.
job, Pierce. It's a good job. It's a good job. You're not my blood brother, right? Because it works very strongly through blood.
Yeah,
Blood
right.
is full of iron, and iron is the clairvoyant metal. I'll tell you this. Why all the magic books are all in museums are classed in iron. It means something. See?
Yeah.
So what happens is between brothers and sisters, you have the same DNA, you have the same blood, right? So it's blood linked. So you wake up one morning. It's a very famous case of this. That was, the Incredible Hulk. So he talks about this. He said, I woke up and I was due to go on scene. In other words, he was then making another episode. He said, for some reason, I couldn't stop worrying about my uncle. Now, my uncle's a very pure man. He didn't smoke, didn't drink. I don't know about women, but everything else he didn't do, right? And he always wore white, and he was just that kind of a guy. He was, highly framed, if you know what I mean, kind of ethereal sort of thing, see? And he said, I don't know why, I was just feeling about him and everything else. And he said, and then someone came rushing in when the director's about to say action, and all the rest of it. And someone said, listen, you've got to go to this hospital because your uncle's just died. He said, but I've been worrying about him. It's the first time I've done that for years. All morning. I don't normally think of it. See? Now, this is a similar thing. This is what I was saying about, you got the same contents, same blood, same connections, like the tuning forks, right, Pierce?
Yeah.
If you get a surge at one end, it comes down the process. And if you are sensitive at all in any way, but you will be to that which you are blood related, you're going to be, to a certain extent, aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've got loads of instances like that in my life. But if you know that's how it works, there's where you begin with it.
And Carl, to tie up that end, this is where I was going with the laws.
Yes.
If you study the laws, you create that tuning fork in yourself. I didn't actually say that. I didn't say go study the laws. I said fall in love with the laws. There's a big difference in that. That creates the tuning fork. And it's not love like, oh, I love you, but it is a love for what really is.
Can I ask you a question? Mr. Sir, Mr. Sir, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask you a question? Come on.
Please.
Yeah, come on. I want to ask you a question. Yeah. What are you doing all this for? You haven't told us why you do it. What's it about you? Because there is something about you, isn't there? What are you doing all of this for? What's it about in you? Because if what you're saying is true, what I say is true, I'm going to end up doing the same things as you. I don't want to end up looking like you. Because I got my own.
That would be a shame.
giving into that one, but you know exactly what I mean. I mean, what are you actually doing this for?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I love you, and I love all of you, and I love humanity, and I love the fact of creation and existence. That's why I do it. I love it. It's my love.
Sorry, I saw an immediate reaction in KK about the one, and in myself as well. What do you mean I love you?
Yeah. That's the reason.
What do you chase? What are you chasing after? What are your purpose? What is your purpose? What's a good
it's
idea?
not
Why
one.
are we doing this? You know, this
It-
came
it's-
out of nowhere.
Yeah. It's never one purpose. I think if anyone acts towards one purpose, it'll take forever to get there. So
I suppose it's worth it if it's good enough, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. But we're multidimensional. We're capable of working out of more than one purpose. One of my purposes, one of my reasons is to do with the fact of consciousness itself, because I've added up that consciousness is actually the law of two adjacent, the pushback against entropy, entropy being the tendency for the universe to wind down, to become stationary. And consciousness is the counterbalance
You
to that.
become lesser yourself than you were when you started.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So in other words, you're not the guy that starts at the top as a managing director and ends up making the tea. You mean that way?
Right.
Yeah. The great negative.
Yeah. So part of it's in service. Part of it is because I can, and I know that sounds weird to some extent, but if someone can do something, they should do something. If it's regenerative, that should be, no putting.
If it's a natural part of your life that was supposed to have been there anyway, how would you see things from the standpoint of those now new ideas and processes working properly in you? What would your life look like then? I mean, what would your relationships with family and things be like if that clairvoyant nature was switched on? What else is there? There's empathy, okay, and then further up the scale there's the medium, isn't there? Mediumship, but not dismiss all the ideas of what you think it's like, because I promise you, when you get to do these things, which is what I thought we were about, you'll see it differently. So you've got a greater mind now to decide about the purpose, etc. So everything develops and grows, right? And then beyond that, you've got the world or the domains of the sensitive. Yes. And then beyond that, you've got the world of the psyche. Now, not the psychic. The psychic's to do with the mental life. It's actually a broken part. You can blame ancient Egypt for that. But it is to do with the psyche of self. So what do you think about the psyche of self? Anybody? I mean, what do you say? Do you think that's important to take account of? Because it is a natural part of your identity and individuality, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like there's your individuality, there's your identity, which comes as a consequence. That's your natural identity. And then there's the psyche, which is where the addition of the conscious life or the awakened life or the mentality of life occurs between those two. I mean, you're a master of the martial arts, right? He's a genuine master. You wouldn't believe it. He really is. I mean, you don't get to see them every day, but you wouldn't know, would you? Until you opened up the martial art thing. Then you'd begin to see that you are the lesser in the affair. And that what you're dealing with here is a huge experience of these things. So your leadership or your work, you run with that, don't you? That's where you run, and it's what you run with. So you run for yourself. In my book, my world, there's no student, there's no initiative.
Yeah.
I mean, no initiate, I know it's very esoteric, say, oh, well, I was initiated on Gretna Green in blood, and all this sort of, it's crap.
Well, initiation came at a point in history where people stopped being able to do it for themselves.
Correct.
Then they had
Agree with
to
you.
have someone
Absolutely.
do it to them. Huh?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Unless, of course, it's something to do with adding to the event of the human, like the Druids, right? Their entire process was based in earth process and elemental life.
Mhm.
You see, the reason for stone circles. See, Joan lives at Glastonbury. Right now, I know where she's living, in a place called Street, I think. When you live in Glastonbury, there's different places. Street, it's a place called Street. That's near the Glastonbury Tor. Stonehenge is a bit of a distance from there, but not that far. Why the circles? What is about the fact of the astronomical aspects of it is one thing, but one thing you know if you know anything about elementals is that you can corral them in circles, especially circles of different kinds of stones. Because there's different kinds of
Bye, Trifena. Thank you.
See you next week. See you next week. You'll enjoy it. Yeah. So they in their practices were powered in what they did, powered by elemental influence, powered by elemental source. So it's not only just what we are, it's also what we are relates to and the kind of domains or worlds into which that search for greater self goes. So I'm talking about having a purpose for it, yes?
Mhm.
So it does come down in the end as to what side of the fence you actually sit on.
Mhm.
And when we sit on, you might say, with the force be with you, like the good side. You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm glad about that in my life, because for all intents and purposes, it's not far to the other side. If you want that, all you've got to do is wish for it. You get it for nothing. Trouble with this side of the fence is you have to work for it. You have to earn it. You have to pay the price yourself. And there's no point paying the price for someone you knew isn't you, in my book. Wouldn't you think so? So when I say to you, what are your purposes? I mean, in that vein, you know? Because how does one start? Where does the process begin? You've got to start somewhere.
Well, it can only start
Where
with
do you
the
start?
return.
I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as that's the proper place to start, because when I'm talking to people, I turn around and I say to them, no, there is no such place as you start there or start here, really. It starts when you find yourself doing it.
That's the problem with yoga, isn't it? Yoga.
Is it?
Yoga, people, yoga is a huge thing in America, probably there too. And the original point of yoga was that you went to see a yoga master, and they would actually detect, exercise detection on you to know where you are and what you are in your way. And then they would give you certain postures and exercises to do. And if someone else came, they would give them a completely different set of exercises, because it was that, each person starts in a different place, right? But now we have these prearranged yoga, sets, which is really nothing more than stretching at this point. It does actually have an
Everything
effect
has its
because
formality and beginning in that sense. Like you've got to learn groundwork. If you
Yeah.
don't do the groundwork, how can there's no foundation upon which you're building things.
well,
It's
and
just
that's the
pie
key,
in
isn't it?
sky, and you're going to take someone, and then you eventually get introduced to people with three eyes. Oh, for God's sake, you've gone up the wrong road here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I'd rather, so it's really finding out where you can go. Where would you say any of us now could go in the next week and begin some kind of connection to something, anything of it, that we can clearly see? How can we do that? What would you say? What would you give them to do? What would you say, that person? I mean, that's fair enough. That's a good test about things, isn't it? Whether they would go there and do it, of course, that's something else. Now, I'm not talking about going down the high road and bending over. I'm not talking about anything like that, all right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's within the reasonability of possibility. Huh?
All right. Then I would say, if I were to offer an exercise for the next 7 days, I would say begin to make a list in yourself of what's natural and what is the culture of oneself. In other words, what one actually is and what one has become, maybe is the right way to put that, because nothing else can start until that's known. You can't even pick a direction until you know what you're working with. I think it's
the other thing is that you can experiment with incenses, can't you? A bit like aromatherapy, really, but without the aroma and the therapy. I'm talking about sensing atmosphere.
Okay, yeah, right.
Again, like, you know, getting used to different kinds of atmospheres, especially where it comes to people.
I think everyone should take
some kind of category. Now, we've got a list of 12 stages of the development of these conditions around you and in you. I think KK's gone. He had to go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, we're right on time, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, we're running up against it.
And it's like, you know, it begins with what is known in this general sense of life as airs and graces. Atmospheres come after airs and graces. Airs and graces is when it all starts to occur. See? Whereas she walk. And she doesn't walk in atmosphere, it's airs and graces. And then, you know, there's atmospheres that occur to where you now partake, but there's different kinds of atmospheres. Good example is like what you call a conductive atmosphere. So sometimes you can be heard and you're speaking normally and people hear you exactly. And yet other times you can't be heard for some reason. No one can hear you.
Yes.
You must have had this in your life.
Yes.
You see? So, and that's called a suspended atmosphere. And one of the signs of a suspended atmosphere, if you go like that with your finger, you get like this, many different fingers.
Yeah, looks like trails.
Like this, you see? That's a presence of what's called a suspended atmosphere, which is, if you go a bit further, it's a gold-based atmosphere, because you've got silver-based atmospheres, gold-based, and these are different kinds of powers of influence. So, and then that goes to a presence, and presence includes people, right? So you can go and there's a presence around, like when you've got a burglar in the house, you wake up, you've got kind of presence in the house, and it's foreign, and you seem to know, but that's your sensing ability doing that to you. Now that's to do with the sensitive. So now you clocked onto something here, right? You can start to fill up these levels with words that relate to it because they're practicable. And if they're practicable, they're attainable. And if they're attainable, then you can practice them by determination if you know how they work. No one can switch me on and off. But if someone comes along and says, I'm now make you clairvoyant, right, I can now come along and say, you're now no longer clairvoyant. They can't do that to me. You understand?
Yeah.
And then after the presence, you get persona. Persona is like when you've often, you know what persona, what the lowest form persona is? Where you get it after arguments. You don't know, you could have chewed the atmosphere. I mean, it's like soup, electrical soup with magnetism involved in it. You feel all sticky and gooey. And very often it's got a human nature in it, or a nature of something in it, especially the nature of whatever's just happened. So persona can be non-human too. And then it goes on from there into eminence. That's where eminence is. That comes next. So you can have an eminent atmosphere, right? And that's where the eminent way begins on that. That's what fuels it in the first place. That's where you learn in the cloisters about the eminent events. And then it goes on from eminence into countenance. So you can have a content of countenance. And then after that, you go into the real royal things, where, as an example, you have majesty. Now, majesty is where you get, this is something that's to do with what's known as a court of something. Kings and queens hold court. But before the majesty comes what's known as an embassy of content. So this is where you get custodianship. So people who hold a force in themselves on behalf of a process. Now you get that in the Masons. You get the black rod, and he is the occult wizard of the Masons. And then in things like Scientology, you've got the Grand Wizard. He's supposed to be the chief sorcerer, but all kings and queens with their majesty, you know, fed sorcerers and wizards and magicians. And do you know what the difference between all three are? You see? Because they all do different things. And how do you tell the difference? You could be walking down the street next to a wizard and you wouldn't even know. And that's because the culture has no place for it.
Right. And that's
they
where
have
the
signs
sensitivity
about
comes
them.
in.
What? Well, you go
That's
on,
where
tell
sen-
me. Well,
No,
what
that-
does a magician have? It has a wand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the difference between the magician I'm talking about and a magician on the stage?
Right.
He taps his hat with his wand and he pulls out a rabbit. But a true magician will pull out a coney. A coney is a rabbit that doesn't have a body. They're well known in the occult, all right? That's a magician. And then the next level up is a wizard. They're no longer magicians. They progress into wizards. And
That's
wizards
when they earn the hat.
And yes, actually, that's right.
Yeah.
They wear pointed hats as well, but their main thing is a walking stick.
Mm-hmm.
And the walking stick is made from special wood at special times, and it's potently saturated with elemental presence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they use. So when they point their stick, it's as good as a baton, you know? And then you get the sorcerer. Good old Lord of the Rings, right? I mean, there you get, what's his name? Gandalf, isn't it? Okay, my name's Gandalf, the Grey Wizard. They got it wrong. The terms are wrong because, you know, Tolkien didn't know about this kind of thing. Not really. He was a book writer, storyteller, but not an actuality, see? And wizards, I mean, sorcerers have staffs, big staffs. That's the difference between the three. That's how you spot them. So it's surprising how many people, you know, don't know these things. But then that's all right. If you do, no matter. It's up to you, isn't it? It's about you, you see. So this is how then your eyes start to open, right? Yes. About what it is that's around you. Because I promise you, everywhere you look, there's 1,000 clues. A million clues to
More
everything.
than that.
Nature
More than
doesn't
that.
lie. It's all open. It isn't hidden. It isn't genuinely. None of it is.
It never was, though. It never was hidden.
No, it
We
wasn't.
hid it. It veiled maybe, but it never was hidden.
That is right. And that was the church for you recently. But various ancient cultures, you know, they are responsible for this too, because they altered and tampered with the nature of the human event.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see that in presence in like in Middle Egypt. Suddenly, there's sun level culture everywhere. And so everything they did in the higher form of their culture was to do with a sun intervention in their ordinary life of self. And this is how it goes. And it's the same with Rome and with the Catholics.
Right.
But they had it
Orman.
right in the first place, but they weren't right about how it came out in the end, you know, because we made subject to that in the Dark Ages, yeah.
Orman, I do need to say something, just because we are 5 minutes over the scheduled time. If people would like to remain on, fantastic. But if you have to go, absolutely. So just have to put that out there to be clean about it. And then,
It won't be the first time we've ended up staying on, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm sort of open. I think maybe people might have had enough of the first issue of this because it's a bit soupy, isn't it? It is. And I think Carl.
yeah, it's about up to here. It's about up to here and here now. The atmosphere.
That's right. Yeah.
Moving in. Yeah. Right. No, it's
So try if you can to get some idea about the atmospheres around in different places and see if you can give it a name. Because this is where collectively everybody can help each other, because you can exchange values and ideas and things of this kind in it. So the collective of it works, but it really is like a pool, isn't it? Where you can pool it all. One can show another, so one can do the work for all too. Yes? I think that was what Carl wasn't, Mr. KK, where he wasn't sure, because you're saying, you know, this is for the individual only. There's no other way, you see.
So
Everybody's going.
if you don't know how to sense atmospheres or have any kind of frame of reference for those, please send me an email and I'll do a one-off on it.
Well, there's a paper somewhere in the archives which is going to come their way anyway.
All right.
Those 12 steps on it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Maybe if you send it to them, then they can remember that bit, can't they? They can have a look for themselves. See if you can identify these different
Things.
atmospheric zones.
I have to get going. Pierce and Orman, pleasure as usual.
And everybody
Thank
else. Yeah. Sachin, good to see you once in a while. That was nice. Are you any older since the last time I saw you now?
Oh, this is my bedroom. I had
Oh.
to do around the house as I was listening, and so I didn't want to distract everybody by having the camera on. So I had a very busy weekend this time around, but hopefully it'll get better.
Well, we're going to finish now, aren't we? Are we? We're at an end today. Yes. Are we back next? Are we back next Sunday? Do you think?
Sure. Yeah.
Anybody comes back?
Randy and Susan, want to check in with you real quick.
Here.
I'll say see you soon.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody.
Right.
Thank you for coming, Zaya, Randy Black, Cassiopeia, looking gorgeous. Mike, thank you for not falling asleep like normal. Very good of you.
Right.
Friends of mine. Yes. And Pearson, I'll catch up with you.